my life when I had a transition to make. It was a really big move and it was very scary. And there is something that happened that was a direct example of what I was going through, and it's something that happened in nature. And if I wasn't paying close attention, I would have missed it, and I might have missed my opportunity to grow. I was living at a place in Portmore. I was living there for a very long time. And there was a mango tree at the front of the yard. And I remember I started hearing these chirping sounds as if there were birds outside. And I said to my friend, I said, Jody, you know, I think some birds build a nest in the tree. But there was one specific morning that I heard the chirping sound so much louder. And when we went, we saw a small bird in the yard. And the bird looked as if, I guessed he came from the nest. And he was just there in the yard, and he was on the ground just trying to flex his wings, but he couldn't fly. And he was trying desperately to flap his wings, you know, and try to move and stuff. And he was just there in the yard. And at first I thought that the bird was alone, except he wasn't alone. When I looked closer and I looked above, I saw that there were two birds, bigger birds, who were there and were watching over him. And I guess that those were his parents. And when I looked at it, and the bird was there in the yard for about 2 days, you know, just scampering around, trying to fly, feeling uncomfortable. We had a cat in the yard that could have gotten him. You know, my sisters and I were there examining him and everything. And, you know, it must have been scary for him. And when I looked at it, I said to myself, you know, this bird is me. Because there I was in the same way. I was getting ready to move from where I was, just as how he had to move from his nest. And it was just a real life demonstration of the journey that I had to take. And so I imagined the bird, and I said to myself that there he was in this nest. And in the nest that his parents had built, it was a place of comfort. It was a place that everything that he needed was provided. His parents would have gone out in the morning and they would have gotten him food, and he would have been fed. You know, everything was prepared. But then a time came when the bird had to leave his nest. He had to leave that place of comfort. He had to leave that place that he was familiar with. And he had to go through this journey to develop his wings. And him being in the yard, that was a transition for him, similar to the transition that I had to go through. So he was there in the low places. He was in the valley, place where he was vulnerable, where he was exposed, and it was dangerous. And I realized to myself that he really had to go through it, because if he did not go through it, then he would not have gotten to the place where he was destined to be, and that was soaring in the sky like his parents. What I realized as well is that there was a purpose in the struggle. And so the bird was there, and the bird was on the ground, and he was struggling to fly. But without that struggle, he would not have been able to flex his wings. He would not have been able to develop muscles that were needed for him to take off. Similarly for us, sometimes we despise the struggles that we go through. I do it sometimes, it's rough, but you despise it. You know, you don't want to go through that period, that low valley. But it's necessary, it's so necessary to help us to develop and to grow and to build our wings so that we can fly. What I also realized as well is that the bird might have thought that he was alone, but he wasn't. And likewise for us, sometimes we're going through our moments of struggles and we really think that we're alone. When I looked at the birds, I saw that the two older birds, that they were over him and they were watching over him. Watching, I guess, perhaps to see if, you know, anybody would try to come after him and stuff like that. And it's the same way that as we're going through our journey, as we go through this year, as we go through the next level, as we take that next step, as we move from those places that we're familiar with and move from our comfort zones, it's the same way that we're not alone, that God is there and He's watching over us with His loving eyes upon us. And so if we want to fly this year, we have to leave the nest. We have to dare to leave and fly.